Hello, I'm Luca De Giglio, and this is the Web3 in Travel podcast, where you can learn about crypto, blockchain, and how the new internet will change travel. This is part 2 of the analysis of the Camino Network white paper. They shared my episode, so I kind of feel compelled, and I'm of course grateful they did. So let's go ahead. I was reflecting on this KYC KYB approach they had, and I want to make a general reasoning around this. So when you talk about KYC, which is know your customer, which is basically an euphemism to say control your customer, check your customer, is a security approach. Is something which is being mandated in general to banks or financial institutions in general to make sure bad people don't transact, right? This is the whole thing. It goes together with AML, which is anti-money laundering, etc. Now, nobody is actually saying that we should help criminals transact in banks or have free access to the financial rails. But what people say against KYC is basically two things. One thing is that it doesn't really work at all. There is no apparently study which confirms that KYC has actually stopped a considerable amount of bad people, let me simplify, transacting money. So money is transacted by bad people in many ways. And especially the very bad people, like the ones moving a lot of money, have even their own banks, right? You can buy a bank license and then you launder your money through there. There's a famous episode of the Mexican narcos who laundered the money through HSBC, and HSBC even changed the size of the windows because these big bags of money couldn't pass through, and they've been fined for that. So this is not a conspiracy theory; it's a fact, and they've been fined, of course, a certain amount of money, which is less of the money they made, as it always happens with banks. So KYC doesn't work, and that's one thing. Another thing against KYC is that you are giving the control of you deputized security, deputized police work to the bank. The bank is not supposed to do policing work. The bank is supposed to be a bank, right? But when you deputize this, you are completely changing the nature of these institutions. Like banks now have, and I was talking to a friend recently confirming this thing, banks have a compliant officer inside the bank itself who can veto anything even the CEO of the bank decides to do. So you have somebody more powerful than the CEO who can veto anything, right? And usually these now remember who told me that, and it's somebody who's been working for a long time in a crypto exchange. Basically, the most powerful person in a bank is a compliance officer, which is a bit weird, right? And who is a compliance officer? Well, usually there's two kinds of them. There's the one who always says no, because they are liable. They can go to prison if they approve some kind of transactions, right? So you got the one who always says no, the very powerful one, and makes basically very hard for the bank to do business and dirty business. And banks are interested in dirty business because they're interested in money and in big volumes, right? And then you have the kind who always says yes, and usually is a person who doesn't even know what's going on. It's just getting a salary. And then is the person who will fall when something happens. So it's the person who will pay. And the reasoning goes that if somebody is doing something illegal, this is the police work. It's police job. They could monitor the transactions, maybe forget the thing about the privacy, but it shouldn't be the bank who decides or which decides who can do what, right? It should be the police. Or somebody sends money, the police gets in and arrests this person, right? This is a bit the idea. So the same reasoning could be done for KYC and KYB at the protocol level, because what we're seeing here with Camino is KYC and KYB at the protocol level, basically at the blockchain level. And one may argue, well, this should be, this kind of control should not be done by a protocol, but should be done, by law enforcement or by the apps themselves, anybody a bit more downstream, right, of this. Why? Well, because protocols should be neutral to be credible. The moment a protocol is not neutral, it tends to lose credibility. If Camino is choosing who can transact and which transactions are allowed, etc., then maybe it could abuse this power, because maybe I want to launch an app which is disturbing one of the stakeholders or one of the other validators, and they won't let me in. Or they do the KYC and they decide maybe that, I can't be a validator. And I'm not saying this is Chain for Travel. This is the Camino Foundation, the other validators too, right? So it's a democratic process. But if, first of all, if you allow a group of people to decide who can get in, well, this group of people may have some interest and not let me in. Not because I'm a criminal, but because maybe I'm a big competitor. That's one thing. And the other thing is how does this KYC exactly work? I mean, KYC in the banks is okay, I need to have your passport, name, video. Now is getting worse because with AI it's really getting hard. But I need to know who you are. The question is, after you know who I am, will you let me in anyway? Or are you looking at my past? This is something very unclear with KYC in general. So there are organizations which are listed. I think it's the FATCA or FAT. I don't remember the name, but it's a list of illegal, of people who cannot use the financial rails. If you KYC and you're part of them, I suppose they don't let you in. You cannot have your credit card, your bank account. What kind of check is this KYC for Camino? Is it just checking who you are and whoever you are is fine, or just checking who you are and then we decide if you can be part of it? This is something which I think it's not clarified here. But anyway, the question again to simplify and go ahead is KYC. So the control probably should not be done at the protocol level because it makes the protocol more fragile. So let law enforcement, let the app decide who can transact, who can use the apps, who can make the smart contracts, etc. And the second is the bad guys will always be able to get in. Imagine if I'm a very bad guy who wants to use Camino Network. Do you think I'm not a very bad and powerful guy? Do you think I won't get in with a fake KYC or something? I just get somebody to do this for me, some guy in some country. I pay them $100, they do the KYC, and then I start doing my things, right? So it's probably inefficient, and it's probably, and that's my position now, right? I could change my mind. It's a very, it doesn't mean I'm right, but by default, I think protocols should be open, blockchains should be open, because this kind of control is not efficient at all. It doesn't really work, in my opinion. Now, I understand the marketing or the positioning of Camino here, which is saying, well, if we don't do that, the industry will not trust. And so it could be actually a good move, even if it's not efficient. It doesn't matter, right? It's it allows companies to have plausible deniability when they are validators. They say, well, yeah, we are validators of this network, but it's KYC and KYB, so they won't have trouble at their end. I'm sure there's a lot of these kind of reasonings behind, so I'm not saying it's a bad move, but it's a new thing in blockchains, as far as I know. And I heard about KYC or KYB on blockchains, and I think the burden of proof is on Chain for Travel to demonstrate that it is a good choice, that this is what makes the whole thing more actually resilient rather than less. But yeah, it's really up to them. For me, it's new, and I'm kind of on the fences with that. We'll see how this goes. Yeah, and probably if you want to do a blockchain which is industry specific, so only travel in this case, you need to know who's doing it, because otherwise people will come and do, dog coins and stuff like this. So that's another question. Could you move this check a bit downstream, where somebody launches a smart contract and then if it's not about travel, it's blocked without needing to reveal who's behind it? Maybe, but that would be then censoring, or at least, it would be moderating the blockchain. Okay, so the next chapter is about the consortium, validators, and governance. And you basically need 100,000 Camino tokens, which it's about $1,200, so $1,200. But it depends on how much the validators pay it. But it's around that value. So you need to put this money as a stake, a bit like proof of stake in Ethereum, similar chains, and then you become a validator and you earn part of the fees, 30% of the fees to be precise. And this is a common way to organize a proof of stake. The difference again is you need to be KYC and KYB, so you need to know who you are. Probably you need to be. I'm sure you have to be from the travel industry. And then with these tokens, you also participate in the governance as usual. There's a 50%, so 51% requirement for a vote pass. And there's two kinds of governance votes. One, which is executive, which means once the proposal passes, the execution is automatic. So like when you want to change the base fee, so the cost of the transaction, this is an executive vote. When you want to accept a new member, it's an executive vote. Some other votes are not automatically executed. They give basically they delegate the right to somebody in the system to make them. Like for instance, there's a general consortium vote, Camino Messenger format vote, grant program. Okay, the only one I really understand at this stage is the grant. So if there is a proposal to give $10,000 to some app builder, the vote passes, the money doesn't go automatically. Somebody has to send the money manually. So I would say this is pretty typical in crypto. With the only exception, again, of the fact that it is not permissionless and you need to be KYC and KYB. Now, this is a good time as any to remind that crypto has a problem with governance. People do not want to vote because while voting itself may be not too time consuming, well, you probably need to connect your wallet, ideally a hardware wallet, which is already a hassle. But then you need to know what you're voting, and that takes time. And in general, in crypto, people don't have the time to follow all the details and to be able to vote, knowing what they're doing. That's why lately delegation has become a bigger thing. Like I prefer to delegate to a person who takes the time to read all the proposals and understands them and then votes on my behalf, rather than simply let me vote just kind of randomly as it happens. So I'm not sure here there's a delegation system. I don't think so, because the vote seems to be, and I'm going to check this while I read that, seems to be limited to validators. I don't see at the moment token holders being able to vote. So a validator is probably asked to be on top of things, and they are already expert in the travel industry. So maybe the assumption is that, okay, these people that put money, they are experts, they can vote, which may be challenging in the longer run when voting actually start happening, if they haven't already happened, is that those companies maybe do not have a person who follows this close enough to vote, and then there could be the risk that they, as it happens in DeFi, if you go on Snapshot, you will see it. People just vote for what other people have voted before, and this is kind of it makes the whole governance process not really good in general. But we'll see. I'm just saying that there's a potential problem there because everybody else has this problem. So Maybe Camino will have it too. The next chapter is about the Camino token utility, and this is pretty clearly a gas token. So you need this token to pay for the gas, basically to pay for the transactions of the fees. And and then it's a governance token, as I was saying before. Here they've write something more about validators, which is interesting. There is no slashing. It means if your node goes down, you don't lose money. Let me remind you what slashing is, because it's pretty important. It's used in all main blockchains. Let's say you are an Ethereum validator with 32 ETH, which is the minimum to be a native validator. That's about $100,000 at today's prices. And your responsibility is to keep the node running. So what does the node do? The node runs and validates transactions. I'm simplifying here. If your node goes down, it's not simply, and while you validate, you earn fees. You make your reward, which is like 4 or 5% a year at the moment. It's not really much. If your node goes down, you start leaking money. So the system slashes you. It takes away a little bit of money every block, basically. And so it's not neutral. It's not like you stop making money. You start actually losing money. So you have to put your node back online. If, on the other end, you do something malicious, like you take the same private keys and you run 2 nodes with it. So with $100,000, instead of running, one node with 32 ETH, you run 2 of them. This is completely malicious. You get slashed. You lose basically all your money, or a big percentage of it. So why would you punish a node operator with losing money if the node goes down? Why don't we simply say, okay, if your node doesn't work, you are not making money? Well, this is to give more resilience to the system. Imagine a system in which you just decide to stop validating, you take your money out, and that's it. Or you turn it off for a month. Maybe, I don't know, you want to run another node on your machine. Then if this happens in mass and everybody does this, the network goes down, completely dies. While if you're committed and you cannot exit so quickly, to exit there's actually a queue. It takes time, and if you go offline for short periods of times and you are punished effectively, then the network is more resilient. So this is all about resilience, and it happened to me in the last couple of weeks. I was traveling. I didn't realize my node. I don't have an Ethereum node. I have a Gnosis node, which is much cheaper to run. It went down, and I didn't pay attention to the alerts. I thought it was down only for like 10 minutes every night, because that's when I got my alerts, and I didn't realize I was completely off. So my whole machine wasn't producing any rewards, and actually I was losing rewards. And to make it run again, it wasn't that easy. So if somebody comes to you and tells you, just run a node is easy, I used DApp node, which was like the promise was like, just buy the DApp node, connect it to the internet, and you're good to go. No, it's a pretty complicated setup. It can go down. It's if you are really technical, you may enjoy it, but don't do it as a hobby or something. It's again, because you lose money if it goes down. It was hard for me to make it go up again, not for my fault. It went down by itself. So something happened somewhere in software. I was down for more than 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. Did I lose a lot of money? Not really. In percent, not much. So the slashing is very light. The slashing for not running your node, the slashing for cheating, you lose all your money. But for just what happened to me, not a big deal, luckily. So Camino doesn't have slashing. They have bonding, which basically means when you put your money, your Camino tokens, on the system, you tell us how long. So you say it's a year. You can't take them out for more than a year, and that's probably it's got a similar effect, a result in making it much harder for everybody to leave at the same time. Actually, probably basically impossible. So that's also a resilience mechanism, which, to the best of my knowledge, is as good as slashing. I don't know. There could be other blockchains doing the same. Maybe the very Avalanche blockchain on which Camino is forked from is using the same system. I don't know. Then the tokens can be used as a payment system. So you can buy basically, it can be one of the payment options for the apps, with the usual problem which every volatile currency has. It's hard to spend money, which is very volatile, but I discussed this in the past. And then, of course, there's a part of the chapter talking about the legal classification. I won't go into it. It basically says it's not a security, it's a utility token. This age-long issue with tokens being securities and having the SEC or the correspondent agency in your country coming after you. How do you solve that? You say people need it to use the system, and I mean, there's nothing as clear to be on the right side of the spectrum of utility security on the utility side as a gas token. Plus, they are in Switzerland, which is really advanced in crypto regulation. So I think this is something that is solved elegantly. The next chapter is about transaction fees, and this is something I really wanted to understand better, because they're using, again, a non-orthodox system for fees. In general, in blockchains, fees are determined by the market. So if there's a lot of demand for block space, fees goes up. If there's less demand, fees go down. Ethereum is famously very expensive because there is a lot of demand for that quality of block space, which is perceived as more decentralized and thus more secure. Other blockchains like, Polygon have very cheap fees, and the whole system is based on a multi-sig, so it's perceived as less secure, and very low fees also generate a lot of spam. There's never going to be a blockchain with zero fees, because that will be completely killed by spam. If you have, some Polygon addresses and you go check the tokens and the NFTs you have a lot, and 99% of them are spam, and it's really, really, really annoying. Camino has a different system. They have a base fee, and the base fee is a certain amount of tokens, so a certain price. Let's say 30 cents base fee for any transaction. The base fee is paid in Camino tokens, and they say if the Camino token goes up 10 times, which I'm sure many people in the network would be happy, well, then the fees will go up to $3, right? From 30 cents to $3. And when fees goes up a lot, they kind of kill many apps which are counting on low fees. We've seen this many times in blockchains. And what's actually happened is many use cases have been killed by high fees. Trips community, when we were doing the marketplace, like the decentralized Airbnb, and an Ethereum transaction was costing 5 cents, it was doable. Then it went to $5 in a few months, and it completely killed the whole marketplace use case. Now, this has been kind of solved in blockchains in general by creating other blockchains and layer 2s which are cheaper. So any app which finds itself priced out in a specific network could kind of migrate. Painful process and difficult process, but it could migrate. So Camino is doing it differently. It's saying, okay, we define a certain price. Let's say 30 cents, maybe in the white paper, we'll see it later. And so anybody has to pay 30 cents for the transaction. I suppose different transactions have different prices because they are requiring more or less resources. But let's say the base fee is 30 cents. And we're going to try to keep it around 30 cents. So if the token goes up, we're going to have a governance vote, which brings, let's say, the token goes up twice. It costs double, right? So to keep the base fee at around 30 cents, you're going to make the base fee 50% cheaper, right? And this is done through a governance vote. So the price of the token goes up. People have to open a proposal. Let's slash the price of the transaction to 50%. People vote for it. It's done. It's one of these executive governance votes. So once the vote is passed, the price of the transaction goes down. But I wonder, volatility especially in small tokens like Camino is it's very quick. So let's say that today, 21st of February, 9:20 a.m., the base fee is 30 cents. The Camino token is at its launch price of 10 cents. And then, boom, a whale comes in and makes the price of the token goes double in 1 minute. From that moment, so at 9:22 this morning, every transaction in the Camino network is going to cost double. And people in the apps will start looking at higher fees. Is 60 cents too much? Maybe for some, maybe not. What if the price goes up 5 times and you start paying $1.50 per transaction? So quickly, let's change the price. There's a proposal and people have to vote. Now, how long you're going to keep this vote open? You cannot keep it open for 5 hours because that would actually make it impossible for most people to vote. You have to give it, 24 hours at least. Let's say 24 hours. So 24 hours later, the price, the price of the fee is changed. It's now back to whatever amount of Camino tokens, but back to 30 cents, right? And okay, we solve the problem, right? And then the price of the token, boom, goes back to original because the way it's sold. Maybe somebody was doing some kind of heavy trade. And now the transaction is not anymore 30 cents, is 5 cents, 3 cents, 1 cent. All right, let's bring it back to 30 cents, another vote. Now you can see how in the presence of an adversary player, somebody who wants to disrupt the blockchain, this is really dangerous. How are you going to fix that? Because they can buy and sell tokens very, very quickly in big amounts, and your reaction time is just too slow. How are you going to do that? So that's a question. Another solution could be that, okay, if we are really looking at, and I have to say, I'm saying this before reading the white paper about that, maybe the solution is there, but it's interesting for you, right? I come up with potential attack vectors, then I read the white paper and they actually solved it. So let's see. Let me keep speculating on this. So another way could be, if you want to have a 30 cents, I'm talking about $30, 30 cents dollar base fee, why don't you could actually use an oracle which reads the price of the token and automatically changes the number of tokens required for a transaction based on the market price. Now that's another risk because you are using an oracle, and there are two things which we have to know about oracles. One is that you have to pay for them. So it's a service like Chainlink, which does the job of keeping track of real world stuff. For instance, real world prices. So how will Chainlink tell you the price of Camino? They will not just look on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap. It's not enough. CoinGecko has a bug and it shows a wrong price. The whole blockchain goes in full panic mode, and people can profit, people can lose money. So they have to look at different sources at the same time, put them together, etc. So it's a lot of work, and you have to pay for this service. And the other thing is that the Chainlink itself could be abused. So after all this work they do, they could still be kind of abused and show the wrong price. And well, we've been through what now? Almost 4 years of DeFi. The attacks are at a very high level. So if there's some vulnerability in a DeFi system, it will be exploited. And that's what makes DeFi kind of resilient, because they've been kind of attacked from day one. Same thing is valid for Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. So I don't know how to solve this problem if you want to keep your fee inside certain limits, because you can be attacked in many ways, especially with the system that Chain4Travel has decided. I see an attack vector based on the timing of the response. a governance vote to change the base fee is too slow. Now, of course, you could say, well, we can keep the price of the token inside certain limits because we are whales. I mean, most people who have the token are people who have a stake in the system, in the blockchain, so they will try to keep it. Now, how do you coordinate that? So unless you are one, like Chain for Travel has a lot of tokens and can move the price a lot and keep it around a certain price, unless you have that, then you have probably a problem. And if you have that now, well, the token is basically centralized. So yeah, let me read a little bit better. Maybe I have answers to these questions in the white paper. So I haven't found anything in this chapter. Maybe I will find it later. But this is one of the questions I will ask in Berlin. They have a stand, so I'm gonna go see them and ask this question. Another question I have is about node validators. So a validator has to put money. Remember, like $1,000, €1,000, whatever, and they have to run a node. What does it actually mean to run a node? Do they have a machine running somewhere like I have for the Gnosis validator, or are they, I don't know, renting an AWS somewhere, so kind of an online cloud machine, or do they delegate this to Chain for Travel? Basically, I'd like to know more because I don't know if all these legacy travel industry corporations have the technical, I was gonna say capabilities, but maybe will to have somebody running a node, and that's what actually makes a network resilient. Is well, the nodes are not all in the same place. Okay, so that's another question. Let's see if I find the answer. The next chapter is Camino Application Suite. So basically, suite. I think you call it suite. Where you see all the software. So they basically have a wallet, which is a traditional wallet with seed phrases, sustainability tracker, basically telling you how much energy and emissions it has. It's a proof of stake, so it's not another Bitcoin. There's a partner showroom where you can see all the apps and their KYB and KYC status. No, that's only about the KYB for the validators. The Camino Explorer, which is like Etherscan, you can see every transaction going on. And then there's a consortium voting, which I suppose is something like Snapshot, where you see the votes. Chapter 3 is technology stack. And bear with me, but this is pretty technical. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. So there's not only one blockchain, as you may think in Ethereum. Even if Ethereum doesn't have one blockchain anymore, we're starting to see a lot of modularity in which, like, data, for instance, is managed by these new layers, like the most famous one being Celestia, or EigenLayer is launching one. But yeah, it basically separates concerns in different chains. So they have a basic blockchain for the validation. It's the P chain, platform chain. They have the contract chain, which is C chain, where you have the tokens and other things. And this comes directly from Avalanche. I used Avalanche when they did the airdrop. So they did the airdrop. We got money from them, and we started playing with it. It was just like Ethereum from the UX point of view. But there was this weird thing about these different chains, which I never really understood completely. I kind of understand it now. It's a separation of concerns. And they also have in Camino the exchange chain, which is mostly, as far as I understand, it's to improve the efficiency of transactions. Like, let's not go too deep into this. Again, they have different chains for different things. And that's also explicitly, as they write in the white paper, it's derived from the Avalanche. But then they added a new chain, the travel chain, T chain. Because travel has specific needs, particularly for messaging and search, in which messaging is a way for all the apps in the travel industry to communicate with each other on one specific layer instead of using different messaging systems. So trying to solve the fragmentation problem, and search, we always search on websites and apps in the travel industry, and they abstract this away from the blockchain, which is low, expensive, etc. You can do the search on normal servers and then write back the results, I suppose, on the blockchain. In the next page, they dig a bit deeper into the messenger, and let me try to simplify this. Today, when the whole thing in sorry, I got a bit confused here. The travel industry is a big mess. Is really a big mess, because if you want to communicate with an app, you need to ask them an API. And let's say you want to, let me simplify to the extreme, and I apologize in advance if it's too simplistic, but let's say you want to know the availability of an apartment or a hotel in booking.com. They expose an API. They show you the availabilities, and this API is written hopefully in a standardized way, where the date is in the format, year, month, day, right? Let's say this is the standard. I don't know, but you would hope that every single API in this travel industry is using the same format. But no, somebody uses day, month, year. Somebody calls this field not check-in, but arrival. Okay? So if you're developing and you try to integrate stuff, you have to basically manually adapt your code to every single system you're interacting with, right? You cannot write one code which works with everybody else. And then you have to hope that they don't change it, without alerting you. So it is really hard for different systems in the travel industry to communicate with each other. And of course, then you have companies which specialize in being bridges and trying to make, basically Google translators for APIs, I would say. And on top of this, some don't give you the API, some they limit the APIs. You cannot ask too many, everybody limits the API against spam, so you cannot ask as many times per day as you want. Some charge you for that. That's not my core. I'm not an expert in travel industry tech, but I know it's really fragmented and complicated. And this example may not be the good one, but it kind of gives you a little bit the feeling. Now, Camino says, okay, guys, let's stop. Let's have one standard, right? And the standard is decentralized, so you can trust it. Because if a company comes in the travel industry and tomorrow says, okay, let's have one standard, I'll manage the standard, people are going to say, no, you're going to be a king if you manage the standard. We need something decentralized. We need something which is credibly not captured, especially the value it generates, because that would generate a lot of value. When you solve a problem, you generate value, right? And we don't want you to capture the value. We want something where I can capture the value too. So a decentralized blockchain, decentralized system is probably the best answer. The other answer is a protocol where nobody's making money out of it, like email, right? Somebody said, let's do email. There's no money involved. Let's just all of us use this system. And everybody uses this system. And now we have email. Right now we've been having email for a long time, but it's also being captured in a way, but that's a different discussion. So that's what they're proposing in short, right? Let's use a system. Let's use an open protocol for messaging with each other. Let's make the travel industry modern and allow innovation at levels we've never seen before, etc., etc., etc. So I don't think the issue here is technical. It's more economical and political in a way. So imagine that every big boss of the travel industry meets in New York in Corleone style, and they say, we need a standard. We can't go on like this. I was going to do the Sicilian accent, but that's probably too much. We need a standard, right? Let's agree on a standard. And they do a standard. Somebody codes it. They run the standard. People who don't respect it get killed. stuff like this, right? This hasn't happened, and not because of they are not able to meet in New York in a big, room and decide it. There's interest there. Somebody doesn't want standards because somebody is profiting. So if a standard comes out, some people will lose power, will lose money, and usually those people are the ones with the most power and money. Because again, if there's not a standard and you are one of the 2-3 standards, well, then you have power. There is a famous comic from XKCD, which is a guy or a person who writes comics in black and white, very basically written, designed, but very, very good. So let me read you this comic. It's How Standards Proliferate. CAC chargers, character encodings, instant messaging, etc. The first box says, situation. There are 14 competing standards. The second box, there's a guy and a girl, and the guy says, 14? Ridiculous. We need to develop one universal standard that covers everyone's use cases. And the girl goes like, yeah. Next box, soon. Situation. There are now 15 competing standards. And the travel industry has been plagued by this, like every other industry. One thing which makes blockchains better in many ways is that you start with the standard. So if you want to operate on the Ethereum network, on the EVM machines, you need to follow the standards or you're out. So it all started with the standard. So I see how Camino is saying, okay, we do the same thing, because now we are a blockchain where standards are at the core. Maybe we can solve the problem. And I really commend them, because if Camino solves this problem, well, guys, you have, this is huge. I mean, how big is the travel industry? $1 trillion? I don't remember. There's always these huge numbers. And they solve this problem. That's really a revolution, right? So let's really hope that somebody or Camino solve this problem. Now, the problem again is the problem in the problem being a difficult problem is that it's never been solved before, because probably there's many people who don't want to solve the problem, right? So Camino brings a new approach on the market. It says we are a decentralized blockchain, so you don't need to trust us. This protocol we are proposing is open and it belongs to everybody. And that makes me come back to the fact that unless you're really decentralized and permissionless, you have all these properties of blockchains, then your proposition is a bit weaker, because people could say, okay, you are proposing this protocol, the blockchain you're proposing is actually, making money out of it. So, well, I could just buy some tokens and I'm part of it. That would be a solution. But, do you see travel industry, dinosaurs buying tokens in the short term? Maybe not. So again, if it was really decentralized as Ethereum is, for instance, maybe this value proposition would be easier to accept. But I personally think that the travel industry will be completely reformed, not by insiders, not by convincing the insiders. I'm not saying here not by Camino, because Caminos are insiders. No, it's good. They know this industry better than anybody else, better than me for sure. But usually what happens in slow adopting industries, slow in adopting technology industries, is that they get disrupted by somebody from outside, which comes in without no previous knowledge and no mental blocks about this. In other words, somebody will create a really open system, okay? And maybe I'm just following the DeFi playbook, and I'm just assuming that because that's the way it happened in finance, it's going to happen in travel. But I kind of think this is the way it's going to go. Somebody from outside the travel industry who is focusing on the technology is going to build something for the travel industry, and this thing works. And the value, basically the transactions and the bookings and purchases are going to slowly moving in that direction, going to go there. And all the corporations will complain, say, but that's not the way we do things here. No, we want to have control over data. No, this guy is not KYC'd. Who made this smart contract? Why that blockchain is even considerate? The whole things we heard in Bitcoin and DeFi before, but simply because it's really incredibly decentralized, it's gonna have a big value for some players, and so it's going to move slowly there, and then the travel industry is going to have to play catch up. That's a new rule. We've seen this with the internet already, right? Somebody built something which is completely permissionless and decentralized. I'm talking about the internet. The travel industry resisted. Of course, you have your own business model which makes money, with travel agencies, for instance. You don't want people to book online, but then people book online because it's 100 times easier, right? So you get disrupted by outside, and then you follow, and then 5-10 years later, oh yeah, the internet is the new thing. You have no idea how back in time the travel industry conferences are. It's like, when you go from a very cold place to a very hot place and vice versa, and you get this condensation in your body or in your machines, The same thing is in the travel industry. You go from an Ethereum conference, let's say DEF CON or something like technical from Ethereum, and then you go to a travel industry. It's a 20 years jump back in time. It's like going back to the time of dinosaurs, literally. And I talked about this in the past before. I got very early in the vacation rental business, again, a few years before Airbnb. And I was going to travel conferences trying to convince people that, or not even trying to convince people, trying to talk to people about vacation rentals and telling them, like China managers or PMSs, do you do vacation rentals? I was laughed at, right? And if you go today, it's like 50% of the market in a way or something like that. I've been in this conference all the time. And the same thing is happening again with blockchains. I've been going to travel conferences talking about blockchain forever. Nothing is moving. The last time in London, zero discussions, zero stands, zero forums, panels about blockchain. Luckily, in Berlin, it's not like this. At the ITB in Berlin, there's going to be whole tracks about blockchain and stuff. But the travel industry is very traditional, and I don't see it disrupting itself. Now, Camino is hybrid. The China for Travel effort here is hybrid. So I commend it. I like it. I'm happy it's happening. It's like people from the travel industry who also have the vision of the blockchain trying to reform the travel industry from inside, from within, but then they have to talk to these dinosaurs. And how do you talk to a dinosaur? They're happy, they're fat, they're on top of the food chain. How are you talking to them about improving things? They don't want to improve things, most of them. They're making money. The bottom line is money. It's not, fluid messaging system. You know what? I'm making a lot of money. The stock exchange is doing great. Why should I change? They are gonna be. I'm completely speculating. I'm not deep in the travel industry to say this is what's happening. It's just what I think is happening. My feeling, right? They're gonna start actually accept innovation when they go in trouble. Now, if 2024 is gonna be a year of trouble for the travel industry, they're gonna be more receptive. But as long as they print money, no, they don't even have time for that. They're counting their money. I know I'm really exaggerating, but I want the message to pass. And again, that's my view. Let's hope that Camino helps the industry reform itself from within before somebody comes from outside and reforms it by force, basically. So will the Camino messenger protocol be successful? I hope so. But again, it's another one of those things Camino has to kind of prove. We cannot simply give it for granted because the technology, the tech is cool or whatever. The next page, still on chapter 3, is redefining touristic interaction and standards with Camino Messenger. And they go a bit more in detail about how this works. But again, I'm going to skip this. I read it. It's interesting, and I suggest you to read it. I'm going to skip this because, again, the issue here is not technical, in my opinion. The next page, 23, is a comparison between Avalanche and Camino, which is a fork of Avalanche, but we basically have seen these things already. And the next one, page 23, I think I said 23 before. Anyway, that's the 23, is quantum readiness of Camino network. And there's a reason why they have a chapter about quantum readiness. That's what everybody outside of the industry will tell you. Yeah, Bitcoin, but what if we have quantum computers which can break the encryption? And the short answer is, well, there's two answers, and I'm really paraphrasing here Andreas Antonopoulos. First of all, if a quantum computer breaks the encryption of blockchains, I'm simplifying, of course, the last thing they're gonna do is to reveal to the world that they broke this encryption by going after a blockchain, like $1 trillion on Bitcoin. Okay, because if you broke sorry, this is just too big, right? If you really break the encryption, you can control the armies of other countries. You can break the whole financial system. You're not gonna go, like, let's say that you find a new weapon, all right, which can beat any country in the world. You're not gonna go steal money from a bank with a weapon, and then everybody knows you have the weapon, and they're gonna try to find a counter tactic or whatever, another weapon anyway. So yes, quantum computing could theoretically, in a certain time, break the algorithms, the encryption algorithms, but they're not gonna attack blockchains first, because I don't suppose this would be done by some Taliban in a cave. It's gonna be done by nation states efforts, and I don't think blockchains are their biggest problem today. The other thing is that, okay, we change algorithm. If the existing algorithms are broken by quantum, you do other algorithms which are stronger. So you just change the algorithm. This is too technical for me. I may be saying, I'm just paraphrasing again, but that's the short answer, and that's what Camino is basically saying. All right, the next chapter 4 is tokenomics. All right, let's see it. I've never really looked into this properly. 1 billion tokens, and you say 1 billion with your little finger on the mouth like Dr. Evil. 1 billion tokens. 23% to the reserve, 23.7% to the reserve, 20% DApp incentive pool, which I assume is the money you give to people to build apps. So if you want to build a DApp on Camino, you're going to get a grant, I suppose. 10% reward pool. I suppose this is the pool for validators. 7.5% second sale, which, if I'm not wrong, is just happened. 7.5% the initial exchange offering, which is basically when you can buy the token on exchanges. I'm not sure this is there already. 7.5% the team, 7% founders, 5% marketing, 5% pre-sale, 4.3% seed investment. This is where the tokens sold to investors at the beginning, I suppose, and then 2.5% advisors. I have to be honest, I've never looked into tokenomics too much. So I'm not really able, on top of my mind, to tell you, all right, 7% to founders is too little, too much, or is good, etc. I don't know. I don't see, some people are really expert and they tell you, well, look at this. If the team has more than that, it's too much, etc. I don't see big numbers everywhere. Probably here you need to sum all of these, which are under the control of the foundation. But yeah, I don't see big red flags, but don't quote me on this. I am not an expert in tokenomics, even if I've been in this thing for a long time. The fact is, maybe a bigger question is, you have to ask yourself when you invest in something like this, is the vesting schedule, when people who bought before you with a lower price are going to be able to sell. But then blockchains are so depending on the narrative, that all these things tend to go out of the window for a while. I mean, a token, even with bad tokenomics, could go very high if there's a strong narrative. Fundamentals matter, of course they do, but in the long term. So if you're thinking about getting in Camino for 5-10 years, look at this very closely. And tokenomics is not, of course, everything. It's mostly about use case, product market fit rather than use case. If you're in for the short term, just you have to basically smell the air, put your finger in the air and see where the wind blows, and then you're gonna be fine. But yeah, let's go ahead. So the vision becomes reality. That's another chapter. And here we go in the use case part of the network. But I mean, I won't tell you too much about this because that's what I've been talking about in this podcast forever. So why Web3 has use cases for travel, and I assume they're going to be more or less the same, but let's them see very quickly. So distribution, meaning less APIs, better connection, more automation, which is basically what we discussed a few minutes ago with the messenger. Payment and settlement, instead of using expensive credit cards, which are based on 1950 technology and are very expensive, let's use a more native payment system. And again, blockchains are native value settlement layers of the internet, so they make more sense. Tomorrow is loyalty. We discussed loyalty a lot. Identity, again, you identify yourself with a wallet, not with I would say like documents or something. And then that's kind of it. I mean, there's a lot more, but they gave the biggest use cases. Chapter 6, risks, security measures, and mitigation strategies. All right, so security measures, there's a consensus protocol, there's network security, and there's secure smart contract deployment because it's enforced with KYC and KYB. One thing to note, the fact that the developer writing the code, the smart contracts, and deploying it is known, maybe it increases the security because it cannot be a North Korean hacker. But the North Korean hacker can still hack your contract. All right. Consider that. It doesn't. I don't want the message to be because everybody's known that the smart contracts are secure. Smart contracts are never secure unless they've been. There's nothing 100% secure in life. Smart contracts are as secure as a function of how much money they have in it and how long they've been online. Then risk mitigation strategy. Auditing. Okay. In DeFi, auditing is being kind of a joke in many cases. So many auditing companies are not good. Many DeFi projects have been audited several times, and still they've been hacked. One of the biggest problems of blockchains is smart contract security. You remove the risk, the third counterparty risk, so you don't have to trust someone that they run away with the money, and you put your money in a smart contract. Now you have to in a smart contract, which you can read, which is open, perfect, it's transparent. You can assess your risk. That's kind of a dream. You cannot assess your risk. How can you assess your risk by reading a smart contract? It looks great. It's been audited, but then somebody hacks it. And then all your risk assumption is going out of the window. Again, the only way, in my opinion, to assess the risk of a smart contract is to see how much money is into it and how long has it been online. So smart contract like the nose is safe. $80 billion for 5 years. Nobody hacked it. Great. It looks pretty safe. Is it 100% safe? No. They may upgrade it, or somebody may find a way to hack them and they steal all the money. Is Bitcoin safe? I would say very safe. 15 years, never been hacked with almost $1 trillion into it. That's a safe one. But Bitcoin is also completely unflexible. It's not flexible. So it's easier to make safe systems which are not flexible. So yeah, while you need auditing, don't consider auditing the final stamp of approval that it's not risky or hackable. Okay, it's just one extra point, data point. Bug bounty program. Okay, if people can get paid to find vulnerabilities, they will do it. Again, that's a function of how much is the bug bounty. There's so much money in crypto, and it's so easy to make a lot of money that a bug bounty today needs to be very, very high. Okay, it's not with $10,000 that you're gonna make people try to poke your system. What's happening a lot is that white hackers, they find the vulnerability, and these are great hackers. They find the vulnerability, they steal the money, and then the DeFi protocol tells them, okay, keep 10%, give me back 90%, and we will not chase you forever, you and your next 5 generations. And yeah, well, that's kind of working in a way. Bug bounty programs exist. Again, another data point is good if there are. It's good if people are using them. It doesn't give you full cover. And then compliance and regulatory frameworks. Well, because regulation is a risk for crypto. They are, I would say, from my limited knowledge, they're very well placed here. They went to Switzerland, which is the right country for these things. They have, they come from there basically. It's from the German, Swiss, Austrian kind of business environment. I would say from that point of view, there's not too much to worry about for Camino. They went to the right place and they are the right people for that. And I think we're done. 1 hour, fantastic. Read it if you want to know more. It was a quick look through it, but there you go. That's the Camino Network white paper. You can't really use this as a reference for future white papers from applications on the travel industry, because this is a foundational system. It's a blockchain, so it has completely different dynamics. But some parts are the same, like the tokenomics, for instance. And I hope you learned. I hope, I have a couple of questions. Maybe you can ask them yourself. Okay, let me say one thing here. There's a Discord server. I could have asked these questions before, coming here and commenting and maybe, giving some negative comments. But I had to read the paper before. I have a couple of questions now. I will ask them when I meet them, and I hopefully get an answer, and then I hopefully remember to tell you about this in a future episode. Okay, did I already tell you I will be in ETB on the 5th of March on stage with Michele Ruber from Peakwork to talk about what's the best blockchain for a travel app. Well, if I didn't, I just told you. So if you are in Berlin, come to listen, come there, so we can also meet. I will be there the whole time. It's 3 days, and I'll be happy to meet you. Now, also, if you have any people you think I should talk to in the blockchain industry for future episodes, let me know. And yeah, I hope it was interesting. And we're done. Thank you for listening to this episode. For more insights, follow me on Twitter at Tripluca, TRIPLUCA. If you enjoy my podcast and want to support it, head on to podcast.web3intravel.com, 3 is a digit, and mint an NFT. If you want to sponsor it, you can do it at the same page. I will mention you in the podcast, and your name will appear on all donation NFTs for a while. Thank you, and ciao.